You kneel beside a crying child in the dark, desperately trying to convince them that the terrifying monster under their bed simply is not real. You turn on the bright light to prove the room is completely empty. But for 99.9% of human history, that exact fear kept them alive. To their 300,000-year-old brain, the dark still swallows all hope. It hides massive nocturnal predators waiting to rip them apart before they can scream. This is exactly why Ape to Legend exists, excavating one ancestral secret every single week. Hit subscribe and stay on this fascinating journey with us. You think your child is just being imaginative and silly. However, evolutionary science tells a much darker and far more brutal story about our past. Their night terror is actually a deeply ingrained biological software. It is an ancient anti-predator module that you cannot simply turn off with a bedside lamp. To truly understand this primal terror, you have to leave your safe, concrete walls entirely behind and journey deep into the vast, unforgiving prehistoric past. Step back onto the harsh Pleistocene savanna, right at the exact moment the warm sun dips below the horizon and the terrifying shadows begin to lengthen. The moment the comforting light fades away, vulnerable human beings instantly drop to the absolute bottom of the prehistoric food chain without any natural defenses. The pitch-black night belonged entirely to the massive cave lions, ferocious apex predators weighing up to 800 pounds, and the deadly, silent saber-toothed cats. In this terrifying world, a single snap of a dry twig in the dark meant brutal death was already suffocating your throat before you reacted. There were absolutely no locked doors to protect you. There were no police to call. There was only the fragile, flickering edge of a tiny campfire. Beyond that tiny circle of warm light lay a terrifying, endless abyss. The freezing wind pierced their skin, bringing absolute terror into their fragile camp. That cold wind carried the undeniable scent of giant beasts. These were ruthless nocturnal hunters that specifically specialized in tracking and hunting primates in the dark. Your child's fear is the exact same biological alarm system that allowed your ancient ancestors to survive those deadly nights. And the story gets even deeper. To truly understand this primal terror, you must leave your safe, temperature-controlled concrete walls entirely behind and step back into the brutal Pleistocene savanna. Picture yourself standing in the tall grass, just as the warm sun finally dips below the horizon. The exact moment that comforting light completely fades, fragile human beings instantly drop to the absolute bottom of the prehistoric food chain. You have no thick hide, no sharp fangs, and no lethal claws. The pitch-black night belonged exclusively to the massive cave lions, ferocious apex predators weighing up to 800 pounds, and the deadly, silent, saber-toothed cats. In this pitch-black world, a single snap of a dry twig in the dark meant brutal death was already suffocating your throat without any warning. Your ancestors did not have locked doors to keep the nightmares out. There were absolutely no police to call when the shadows began to violently move. There was only the fragile, flickering edge of a tiny campfire separating your highly vulnerable family from the absolutely terrifying abyss lurking just beyond the light. The freezing cold wind fiercely pierced their thin skin, sweeping through the camp and constantly carrying the terrifying scent of giant, hungry, unseen beasts. These were not just mindless animals, they were highly specialized nocturnal hunters that actively tracked, targeted, and hunted slow, weak primates in the absolute dark. Every single time your prehistoric ancestors closed their eyes to rest, they were gambling their lives. Sleep was a highly dangerous vulnerability that invited silent, creeping death. Imagine trying to peacefully rest while the agonizing, bloody screams of an animal being torn apart fiercely echo through the trees just 50 yards away from you. Your tiny, fragile body was forced to adapt to this constant state of sheer dread. Evolution ruthlessly sculpted your nervous system to treat the darkness as an ultimate enemy. The prehistoric night ruthlessly swallowed anyone who dared to playfully wander too far from the protective group. Isolation in the dark was a guaranteed, violent death sentence. So, the early humans huddled tightly together, violently shivering in the cold, desperately feeding the flames because that fragile fire was their only artificial sun and shield. This agonizing nightly routine brutally repeated itself for hundreds of thousands of years. The absolute terror of the dark was carved directly into your genetic blueprint forever. Evolution is a brutal, entirely unforgiving designer. The prehistoric children who boldly wandered into the dark to investigate a strange, mysterious shadow simply did not survive. They were violently consumed. The unyielding rule of the Pleistocene savanna was simple. Curiosity in the pitch-black night was an immediate and absolute death sentence. The only ones who survived were the extremely paranoid children, the ones whose blood instantly froze at every single ambiguous shape shifting in the deep darkness. The survivors were the ones who stayed desperately close to the adults, crying and screaming at the terrifying unknown to secure immediate parental physical protection. Anthropologist Pascal Boyer and evolutionary psychologists identified this core biological survival mechanism. They officially call it the Hyperactive Agency Detection Device, or simply HAD for short. Your child's developing brain is strictly wired to automatically assume that a sudden rustle in the dark room is a hungry, vicious predator rapidly approaching them. It never casually assumes it is just the harmless wind. Because in the brutal prehistoric world, making a false alarm literally cost your ancestors absolutely nothing. However, fatally ignoring a real, hidden threat lurking in the shadows instantly cost them their life. Evolution heavily favored the brains that fiercely panicked at nothing. Over 300,000 years, this intense paranoia became permanently coded into human DNA. It is a highly effective, built-in anti-predator module, functioning flawlessly even today. So when your child stares at a messy pile of clothes in the dark, their primal brain forcefully hallucinates a crouching monster getting ready to strike. This optical illusion isn't a simple mistake. It is an ancient survival feature, violently taking control of their nervous system to forcefully keep them fully awake. This very same deeply rooted terror is exactly what kept your distant bloodline safe from completely going extinct during the freezing, predator-filled Ice Age nights. You are literally witnessing the powerful echoes of prehistoric natural selection operating perfectly inside your own safe, warm, and highly secure modern family bedroom right now. Their tiny body isn't broken or overly imaginative. It is just successfully remembering the ancient, deadly predators that you have completely forgotten about over the centuries. No standard classroom textbook ever teaches you this. Ape to Legend does, every single week. Hit subscribe right now and stay on this fascinating evolutionary journey. Fast forward to our modern era today. We brilliantly invented the electric light bulb and finally illuminated the once terrifying pitch-black night into a state of absolute safety. We built impenetrable fortresses of solid wood, strong brick, and clear glass to permanently keep the vicious wilderness and its nightmares firmly outside. We aggressively conquered the earth and completely banished those giant prehistoric predators to harmless dusty skeletons resting quietly inside brightly lit natural history museums. You now live in an environment of unprecedented biological safety. But here is the brutal reality. Evolutionary time always moves at a painfully glacial pace. Your child's developing brain absolutely does not know that the deadly saber-toothed cat officially went extinct over 10,000 long years ago in the deep past. To their ancient, deeply wired nervous system, your quiet, comfortable suburban neighborhood is exactly like a dangerous Pleistocene savanna waiting for the sun to set. When you casually reach over and flip that bedroom light switch off, their ancient neural pathways instantly fire up like a blazing red alarm inside their head. The sudden, suffocating darkness triggers an immediate biological response, rapidly flooding their tiny, fragile bodies with a heavy, overwhelming surge of survival stress cortisol. Their pulse wildly races inside their chest. Their pupils frantically dilate to gather any available light. They are physically, biologically, preparing to be brutally hunted. This is the ultimate example of an evolutionary mismatch, a tragic, painful gap between our modern world and our deeply ingrained prehistoric hunter-gatherer biology. We completely changed our physical environment in just a few short centuries, making it incredibly safe and undeniably comfortable for our fragile human bodies. But underneath our soft, comfortable modern pajamas, we are still tightly wearing the heavy, paranoid biological armor of our deeply hunted prehistoric ancestors every single night. Every single shadow in the corner of the room is furiously calculated as a lethal threat because evolution stubbornly refuses to take any foolish chances. Your child is not stubbornly misbehaving or acting foolishly when they desperately cry out in the dark. They are simply surviving the only way they naturally know. Their ancient fear module is functioning perfectly, stubbornly trying to protect them from a long-lost world that violently consumed both the careless and the brave. So, how exactly do you fight an invisible monster that has fiercely lived inside human DNA for over 300,000 years? The profound answer is that you don't fight it at all. You deeply acknowledge it, respecting the ancient biology that kept your ancestors alive. The very next time your child fiercely trembles in the pitch-black dark, please do not simply tell them that they are being silly. Do not dismiss their ancient survival instincts. Instead, you must warmly hold them close to your chest and become their protective, prehistoric campfire. Gently tell them that their tiny, fragile body is doing exactly what it was perfectly designed to do in a dangerous, untamed world. Reassure them that their amazing brain is successfully acting as a flawless, prehistoric sentinel, bravely standing guard against the vicious nocturnal predators. They are not weak. They are the incredibly proud descendants of the ultimate survivors who successfully outlived the massive, terrifying saber-toothed cats. The intense fear of the dark is a biological badge of honor. It proves that your lineage survived the most unforgiving environments imaginable, because we were not originally born as the apex predators. We started as the hunted prey, desperately fighting for every single tomorrow. Your body isn't broken. It's remembering 300,000 years of history. That story continues. Subscribe to Ape to Legend and stay on the journey. We will continuously keep excavating these hidden truths about why you act, feel, and survive the way you do in this modern world. You no longer need to exhaustingly convince your crying child that the terrifying monster under their bed is just a fake illusion, because you finally understand that the monster was real enough to permanently shape their brain, and their profound fear is what kept them alive. From ape to legend, that's the astonishing story of every human alive today. See you next week on Ape to Legend. So gracefully turn off the light, hold them safely in the dark, and let the ancient protective echoes of the past softly fade away.